Can someone actually work hard enough to earn $1 billion, or is extreme wealth always just the result of a rigged system?
Well, I mean, if you ask Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, it is structurally impossible to earn $1 billion, like without exploiting someone. But if you ask the people defending our modern economy, they'll say, billionaires are actually the ultimate proof of value creation.
Right. And recently, we are seeing this exact question just completely explode in the news.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so Representative Ocasio-Cortez, or AOC, she made massive waves across the media recently by stating just flatly, you can't earn $1 billion. She essentially argued that amassing that kind of fortune requires breaking rules, and basically paying workers less than they are actually worth.
And the media reaction to that single quote was, well, it was like throwing gasoline on a fire.
It really was wild. Over on Sky News Australia, for example, political commentators fiercely criticized her. They call her ideas full-blown communist, which is a pretty intense label. And they pointed out that her proposals actively frighten a lot of mainstream voters. They see her ideas as a genuine danger to the American economy.
Yeah, and meanwhile, if you jump online, like look at forums like Reddit, the debate is just exploding.
Oh, yeah. Totally raging. People are arguing fiercely about the morality of billionaires, digging into historical tax rates, and debating exactly how wealth is created in the first place.
It's a massive cultural flashpoint right now.
Which is exactly our mission for today. We are taking a deep dive into this exact debate. We have a massive stack of sources for you today. Political interviews, economic history from the Tax Foundation, the theories of economist Thomas Piketty, and a really fascinating book about the role of luck.
Yeah, we're really going to look at the hard statistics and the deep moral questions driving both sides here.
But before we do, we need to give a crucial disclaimer. Because our sources contain highly charged political content from both left-wing and right-wing viewpoints, we want to make it absolutely clear to you, we are not taking sides.
Right. Not at all.
We are simply unpacking the facts and arguments presented in the source material just so you can understand the ideas driving this massive cultural conversation.
Exactly. So I think before we look at the math of taxes, we really need to understand the moral argument that's sparking all this.
Yeah, why do some people view billionaires as a symptom of a broken society, while others view them as, like, heroes of innovation?
Let's start with AOC's stance from her MLK Now interview. She really frames extreme wealth as a fundamental moral failing.
She does, and she uses these really specific, stark examples. Like, she asks how a society can justify people owning personal helipads while, at the exact same time, people in Alabama suffer from preventable diseases like ringworms simply because they lack basic health care.
Yeah, she points a finger directly at corporations like Walmart and Amazon, too.
Right.
She claims they use government subsidies to survive, essentially, while paying their own workers less than a living wage.
So in her view, amassing $1 billion isn't earned. It's extracted from vulnerable people.
But then you have to lay out the intense pushback from the critics in the sources, like the Sky News Australia perspective, which argues her views alienate mainstream voters by attacking the core of the economy.
Yeah, and if you look at the Reddit debates we pulled, they focus heavily on this concept of voluntary trade.
Exactly. The Reddit threads bring up people like J.K. Rowling or George Lucas. The argument is that they became billionaires simply because millions of people voluntarily chose to buy Harry Potter books or Star Wars toys.
Nobody forced them.
Right. Nobody was coerced. They provided something people wanted, and they got extremely wealthy in return.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I think we are often confusing piles of cash with paper wealth here. The sources point out that billionaires don't literally hoard $1 billion in a giant vault somewhere, right? Their wealth is almost entirely tied up in company stock.
That's a huge distinction, and it explains why this matters so much. When millions of people buy stock in a company, the paper value of that company goes up.
Just on paper.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't mean the billionaire extracted that specific cash from their employees' paychecks. Furthermore, the sources give this great example. Imagine an inventor who creates a new technology that cuts gas consumption by 25%.
Okay.
That invention generates $34 billion in value for the U.S. economy in a single year. It benefits everyone.
Right. Shipping gets cheaper. People save on gas.
Exactly. And the inventor might become a billionaire in the process by selling it. But they didn't steal that money. They created immense new value.
Okay, so if wealth is mostly paper and stock value, how does it accumulate so quickly at the very top? I mean, this brings us to the actual mechanics of capitalism.
Yeah, and for that, we need to introduce Thomas Piketty's famous formula.
From his book, Capital in the 21st Century.
Right. He boils it down to R is greater than G.
Okay, lay that out for us. It's actually pretty simple. When the rate of return on capital, so investments, stocks, real estate,
That's the R.
right, when that grows faster than overall economic growth, the G,
Yeah.
which is mostly wages, and labor wealth naturally concentrates at the very top.
Oh, wow. So money makes money faster than work makes money?
Precisely. And Piketty warns that this threatens democracy because it inevitably creates an oligarchy of inherited wealth.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Is Piketty essentially saying capitalism is like a game of Monopoly?
How do you mean?
Well, once a player buys the first few hotels, the math basically guarantees they win unless we completely change the rules, right?
Yeah.
The rich just get richer automatically.
That is a perfect analogy for his theory. But we have to look at the fierce rebuttal to Piketty from our sources because he got a lot of pushback.
Right. He didn't just get to publish this without a fight.
No, not at all. The Financial Times famously dug into his work and actually found unexplained errors in his data.
Wait, really? Just straight up errors? Yeah. They claimed his numbers didn't add up. But even beyond the math errors, critics like Matthew Wrongley argue that Piketty completely missed the mark on what's actually causing the inequality.
Okay, what does Roglinley say?
He says the surge in capital isn't from, evil corporations hoarding machinery or tech. It's almost entirely from surging housing prices.
Wait, so it's just real estate?
Pretty much. The data shows that the wealthy aren't running away with all the factory equipment. The wealth gap is exploding because land is scarce and housing prices are skyrocketing.
Which totally changes the problem. If it's housing, then you just need to build more houses, not tear down the whole corporate structure.
Exactly. It fundamentally changes the policy response. But politicians often ignore that and go straight for the income tax code.
Right. When politicians like AOC suggest a 70% tax rate, or Piketty suggests an 80% income tax, they often point to the 1950s. They use it as proof that sky-high taxes work.
The famous 1950s tax myth.
Yeah. But what does the historical data actually tell us about that? Because the Tax Foundation data we pulled is wild.
It is shocking. So people love to bring up that there was a top marginal tax rate of 91% in the 1950s.
91%.
Right. But despite that, the top 1% of earners paid an effective income tax rate of just 16.9%.
Okay, we need to clarify that. Because 91% down to 16.9% is a massive drop. How does that math even work?
The sources outline three big reasons. First, that 91% threshold. It only hit households making over $200,000 back then.
Which is like, what, $2 million today?
Exactly. So it affected fewer than 10,000 families in the entire country.
Oh, wow. So nobody was really paying it.
Very few. And second, it only applied marginally to the dollars above that limit. You didn't pay 91% on your whole income, just the very top slice.
Right, the marginal rate.
And the third reason is the biggest one.
Mhm.
It caused massive tax avoidance.
Well, sure, if government wants 91 cents of my next dollar, I'm going to hire a very good accountant.
Exactly. People sheltered their money. In fact, if you look at the overall effective tax rate for the wealthy today, including state and local taxes, it's only about 5.6% lower now than it was back in the 1950s.
So what does this all mean? If a 91% income tax didn't actually collect 91%, are modern politicians chasing a ghost? Like, is there a better way to level the playing field?
Our sources suggest there might be. We looked at Robert Frank's book, Success and Luck, and he introduces this idea of a progressive consumption tax.
A consumption tax. So instead of taxing what people earn, you tax what they spend.
Right. You take their income, subtract whatever they put into savings or investments, and subtract a huge deduction for basic needs. You only tax what they consume on luxury.
Okay, so this stops the, what did the book call it, the arms race of building $10 million mansions.
Exactly. It heavily penalizes wasteful spending, but it encourages savings and investment, which actually grows the economy.
That makes a lot of sense. But, if income taxes are that easily avoided and wealth is this incredibly complex mix of stock and real estate, maybe we need to look at the philosophical root of success itself.
I completely agree.
Like, how much of becoming a billionaire is actually based on hard work, and how much is just dumb luck?
This is a really uncomfortable question for a lot of highly successful people. But Robert Frank breaks luck down into two dimensions in his book. First, there's structural luck.
Right.
He points out that half of your income variance globally is decided simply by where you are born.
It's geography.
Yeah, being born on a farm in Bolivia versus being born on a farm in Canada. The Canadian has a massive structural advantage before they even take their first breath.
Okay, but what if we're comparing two people in the same country?
That brings us to the second dimension, the twists of fate.
Okay.
Frank argues that even the absolute hardest working people rely on massive, serendipitous events to launch their careers.
Like just being in the right place at the right time.
Exactly. Running into the right investor in an elevator. Or a competitor randomly going out of business at the exact right moment.
So you need the hard work to capitalize on it, but the luck is the spark.
Right. And why should you, the listener, actually care about this?
Well, because it challenges how you view your own achievements. If meritocracy is partly a myth, it basically asks us to have a bit more humility about our successes.
Absolutely.
And honestly, a bit more empathy for those who struggle, because sometimes they just didn't get that lucky break.
It completely shifts how we view the wealthy and the poor.
Okay, we have covered a ton of ground here today. To summarize, we unpacked the fiery moral debates over billionaires, looking at AOC's arguments versus the voluntary trade defenders.
So we looked at the math behind Piketty's R is greater than G and the shocking truth about those 1950s tax rates.
We did. And finally, we explored the undeniable role of luck in achieving extreme wealth. But I want to leave the listener with a final thought to chew on.
Okay, lay it on us.
Imagine an inventor creates a brilliant new technology that actually stops climate change and literally saves the planet.
Okay.
But they become a multi-billionaire in the process. Does a truly just society celebrate their incredible fortune as a fair reward for saving the world? Or do we aggressively tax it away to build schools and hospitals because nobody actually needs $1 billion?
Wow. That really gets to the core of it.
Something for you to think about until our next deep dive.